Okay, for real now. We're going to share the screen and start this. MREA. I don't think I normally record these because it's a video of a video, but I'm going to record it today. Send it.
No, I have this cool little like stream deck thing, but you think I would use it? No.
Good morning, friends. If you've got the ability to turn your video on, please do so. We have an amazing guest today. We can't wait to get rocking and rolling. Love to see some more faces on before we get going.
I'm gonna just say good morning to a lot of our students or people who have been with us since day one. And I see Randy and Corinna, and I'm going to miss a ton of you, but I see you regularly with your cameras on and engaging. Lorraine and let's see, Krista comes. Tim is always on with us, which I love. Good morning, Tim. How are you? I hope everybody on here had a wonderful Father's Day. Tim, did you?
Yeah, no arrests. We're very excited. Yeah.
That's always a good.
We cleared straight through. The boys took care of me.
Very good. Awesome. Awesome. Krister, I forget. Do you have children?
I do. I've got 17-year-old twins.
Well, happy Father's Day to you. Did you have a good Father's Day?
I did indeed. I am at our new house up on Cape Cod in Chatham as we speak. Unfortunately, the kids were not able to be here this weekend, but we did a little celebration earlier last week. So.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive into today's session. We're on week 3. I believe this is session 7, right, Brooke? Right?
Yeah.
So we're on session 7 of our 11 series session of MREA. We're getting towards the end of the book, and the budget model is what we're going to be talking about today. As you guys know, my name is Jen Bovey. I almost forgot my last name. Sometimes I do have an identity crisis because I have Jen Bovey Kelly. If you're friends with me on Facebook, it says Jen Bovey Kelly. So anyway, today it's Jen Bovey, and I'm the area director for the New England region. I'm here with Brooke Silva, our regional tech trainer, and I believe Tiffany is on as well. Tiffany, are you here? She might be jumping on a little bit. She's our market center tech trainer, and she has many other hats that she wears. She's going to be helping out in the chat section. And the best of all here, we have Krister, and I'm not going to butcher your last name. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and let them know about where you are from and where you are now and all the good stuff in between. So Krister, thank you so much for being our instructor today, and take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it, Jen, Brooke. My name, Krister Holmquist. I was born in Sweden. I came to the United States when I was 13 years old.
This is probably the
I am kind of a New Englander, although I currently reside in New Jersey.
Teach class after this at 11.
I moved to the Boston area when I was 13, like I said, coming from Europe, and fast forward, got into real estate about 21 years ago. So this was down in New Jersey. I started with Coldwell Banker and was with them for 10 years before transitioning over to Keller Williams. I've been with KW for the last 11 years. During my career, I have had the pleasure of being a solo agent. I have managed offices. I have been in a partnership, and I have managed a glob of agents. It's a term I just learned that Jason Abrams taught me, and that is when you just have a team, or you think you have a team, but you just have a bunch of agents working under you, and there's no structure, no systems in place. And most recently, our team has been in existence for about 15 years, ever since the Coldwell Banker days. But it was not until the last 4 years where we really got purposeful about our team and about studying our numbers and really getting to a place where we now have a profitable business that runs about last year we finished with a 35% profit for the team. And this year so far, we are running I will share with you my profit and loss in a little bit, but we're right around a 35% profit margin as well year to date. So our team is comprised of myself. I have 5 agents and 2 full-time admins. We do about 160 to 175 transactions a year, running a little bit behind pace this year, but that's all good. And today we are going to talk about the budget model, which is near and dear to my heart because about 4 years ago, when I started getting really serious about this, I was running a business with a whopping 9% profit margin. Now, for any of those of you who know anything about our business, that is not very good. I mean, it is next to not making any
Oh my God, I
money
can
at all.
renew it.
And it's because I wasn't serious about really tracking and focusing on my numbers. So it has become a passion of mine. I look at our numbers on a daily basis as team leader of our team. That is kind of my job. So we're going to dive kind of heavily into the numbers of the budget model and kind of explain everything and what it means and what it represents and how you should be tracking it as well. Whether you're a single agent, a partnership, or a team. So first of all, I also want to thank everybody for being here and also to wish everybody that is a father a happy Father's Day. So let's get right into it. First of all, I just wanted to kind of have everybody take themselves off of mute and give me some ahas of what you guys have learned, so far. I know that you've done 6 other sessions from the 6 myth understandings, the 9 ways an MREA thinks, the 3 L's and the 8 goal categories, the 4 models, the economic model, and most recently the lead gen model, I believe, right? So yeah, feel free to just take yourself off of mute. Give me some ahas of what you guys have learned so far.
My favorite so far is it's a model, not a menu. I mean, that just speaks right to my heart.
Claire, can
Absolutely.
you tell Krista a little bit on how Laura explained that? Because that was like one of the golden nuggets of this series so far.
I wouldn't do it justice. It just really was like Cupid's arrow through my heart. I loved it.
It really was great. I used it just the other day on an agent explaining it, and he's like, oh, that totally makes sense. So Krista, Laura Strunk is one of our team leaders in Cape Cod. You might have already met her. And she was one of our instructors, and a couple of sessions ago, she told us all, and I'm not going to do it justice either, Claire, so I'm just going to paraphrase it. She told us all that so many agents get stuck in thinking that this book right here is a menu where you just kind of could pick and choose which ones you want to use and hope it all sticks together. And
Right.
If you follow it like an actual model, where you follow the model through, it actually works. So she did much better than I just did, but that was a huge aha, Claire. So thanks for bringing that one up. What else? I love these. So what else?
Simone from Greater Hartford, page 173 that I underlined and re-highlighted. Again, above all, you'll be focused on generating leads. I like to say, in the words of Gary Keller, I like to say lead generation comes first, last, and always. The difference between the millionaire real estate agent and an average real estate agent is that the millionaire never stops the ball on lead generation.
Without a doubt. Amen to that. I mean, it is something that I talk to my team about. It is every single Zoom meeting that we have within the team and our weekly team Zoom meetings. It is every one-on-one that I do with my team members. It is first and foremost, we talk about lead generation. What did you do this week? Where were you successful? Where were you struggling? And the cool thing about this, and I love what Claire said as well, about it not being a menu, it's a model, is that, I look at it, another way to look at it is that this is an instruction manual. And, you can really go. I mean, if anybody has put together IKEA furniture, you start with step 1, you don't start with step 18 because, things are not going to look so good. And, the cool thing about this book is that it's timeless. The models work, they can be tweaked and adjusted a little bit, but it's going to stand the test of time.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Randy said in the chat. There's no mystery of it, right? The MREA is a selling system. So I think
Right.
what Randy's saying is don't overcomplicate it like we all try to do.
That is so true as well. People do try to overcomplicate things, and I'm going to try to take a look at the chat here too, if there was anything else. What's the beneficiary of your team's post-tax profit? So yeah, I mean, that is myself and my partner, my co-owner of my team, who also happens to be my ex-wife. So let that sink in for a little bit. I moved to New Jersey 30 years ago. I married a Jersey girl. We were in the hotel business together for 10 years. She got out, got into real estate. I joined about 1.5 years later. And a few years after that, we decided that our marriage did not work out, but we were great business partners. So we said, why not just continue to work together? And now 17 years later, we have these two amazing kids who just graduated high school, are headed off to Miami. And I have since remarried. I went back to my roots, married a New Hampshire girl who I met in New Jersey. Yeah, exactly, Brooke. And yeah, we just bought a house in Cape Cod back in February. We are transitioning up here full-time in September. So I am going to be part of your region. I am also getting certified as a MAPS coach, and I have ownership in a title business. So a lot of things going on. I'm going to continue to run the team remotely from Cape Cod, my team down in New Jersey, because why not? And that is something that this company and this book has taught me how to do, right? The fact that I can be an absentee owner of a team, I can be kind of 7th level, if you want to call it that, where I am no longer in production, but I am, you know, managing my team, helping them out and stuff like that. So back to Randy's question, it is my partner and I who benefit from the post-tax profits of the team. But you know, my goal specifically for the team members is to create a world big enough for each of those people to, you know, just expand and grow their business. So case in point, my partner Kelly is our lead listing agent. She is a listing machine. She does nothing but the 5 kind of key tasks. She is lead generating. She is setting appointments. She's going on appointments. She's negotiating, and she's following up. I have a lead buyer's agent who has his own showing assistant, and he's working on a second showing assistant to maximize what he can do. He is also taking over a satellite office for our main office. So he's going to be an interim kind of team leader, just kind of a managing broker there. So, you know, this is all kind of stuff that KW has taught us over the years on how to grow a business and how to, you know, create worlds big enough for the agents on our team to want to stay, and they know that they have growth opportunities within our market center and within our team. We also have a new agent who we just made into a listing manager. So she is fast tracking on learning everything about the listing side of it, so that Kelly, my partner and the lead listing agent, eventually, and this is kind of one of those mind-blowing thoughts as well, that eventually she could get to the point of just doing nothing but lead generating and setting appointments. And then what she would do is to hand off those appointments to a lead listing agent underneath her, who would then secure the business. And then she's just sitting back and doing that, which, you know, if you're working for any other company, there's no chance that that would ever happen. All right, any other ahas before we kind of dive into the curriculum? Because there's only 3 pages worth of the curriculum. So let me know if anybody's got anything else they want to share with what they're scalable. Absolutely. That's what we're trying to do, is create a scalable business, Claire.
You know, on that, Krister, one of the other instructors, Hector, he dropped a pretty big nugget as well when he asked you to figure out what your hourly wage was. Do you guys remember how he calculated that? Alan knows, right? So he said, take what your net was last year, your net. So if this is just a reminder, I know we send out our recap emails too, but take your net that you made last year, divide it by 2080. Does anybody remember what 2080 is?
No, what's 2080? I saw the email and
2080 is
20% of your profit Well, 20% of your clients will give you 80% of your profit.
You're
okay,
absolutely
yeah.
right on the 80-20 rule, but what he was talking about, and that you are right on that. It's the 80-20 principle. Yeah,
That's
what
40
he
hours,
said.
40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year.
Yes, Randy, that's a 80. So the 2080, 2080 is the amount of hours you divide your net amount by, and that's 40 hours a week for 52 weeks. But
Yeah,
you're
I
right
figured-
on the 80-20 principle, Corinne.
I figured it. I like it.
It's
I
so
saw the email.
great. How
Yeah.
many of you calculated what you make per hour? Anybody? We did this in my team meeting because it was, I
I
thought
did.
it was so awesome.
I did.
You did.
I can share mine. I don't know if I'm happy about it or not. $91 per
90
hour.
So what's your goal for that, right? What would your goal be for that?
I mean, last year I did 40 transactions. My goal to do like 50 this year. I know it should be more, but I don't know why it's slowing down this month.
Well,
Does
so what I
does-
would say and what I would look at is, okay, if I'm making $91 an hour and I really want to make $200 or $300 an hour, what do I need to do to be able to do that? Right?
Need a friend. Call.
It might mean leverage. It might mean a whole bunch of things, but $91 an hour is great, by the way. Would you want it? It's up to you what your goal.
I'm interested to hear what some of your goals would be for your hourly rate. If anyone wants to share.
I don't think I've really thought about it much.
I know, I haven't either. I was just curious to see if you guys had. I really hadn't either. I honestly, I don't want to discourage you from doing this in the beginning, but I think that some people are motivated by an hourly rate. I'm not one of them. And I think sometimes if you calculate some deals you're going to work on and you're going to be like, oh my God, like I got paid essentially nothing for the amount of work that I did. But you want to kind of reframe it in your mind about the experience that you're gaining and the wisdom that you're gaining, because you're going to learn something from every transaction that you do. But don't focus on the hourly rate once you're selling, like 20 homes a year. Before then, try not to.
Is to increase that if you want, but I think 50 is a good goal. Krista, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's up to each individual, right? I mean, whenever we talk about, making money, it's always two sides to it. There's time and there's money, right? So you can decide what's more important to you. Is it making more money or is it having more time? I am at a point right now where I am super cognizant of the time that I have with my kids and my family. When I was younger, when I was in my 20s and early 30s, I didn't care as much about the time aspect. I wanted to make as much money as possible. So I would work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Now that I have, teenagers and now that they're going away to college, I want to make sure that time is my most precious commodity. So everything that I do is to be scalable, is to be as highly leveraged as possible. Now, all these conversations are bringing up a great point, and that is that all of these models work in tandem with each other, right? So that if I am talking to anybody that's on this call and we're talking about whether it's profit, the numbers of hours lead generated, the number of transactions you do, there's various models that you can just take and then back into whatever number it is that you want to concentrate on. Whether that is how many real estate conversations do I need to have in order to make $200,000, I can calculate that for you. What should my expenses be if I have a profit of $200,000? What are my costs of sales supposed to be? So all of these can be interchanged. All of these numbers can be worked and re-engineered either which way, frontwards, backwards, sideways. And that's the beauty of it, is that it's all goes back to the same thing. We're talking about profit. We're talking about expenses. Ultimately, we're talking about time and leverage. So, all right. Somebody asked me, are your admins on site or do you use virtual admins? I'm trying to find a great virtual admin. So we've done both. We currently have on-site admins. We have, both of them are licensed. FYI, and we have done things a little bit differently. I am a master. If anybody ever wants to use me as a resource of how to fail having a team, call me, because I have failed a million different ways. And it's only through failing and failing forward that we're able to get to the point where we are now, and I'm able to do the things that I'm able to do. And frankly, you know, this is a whole nother class, but I feel like I'm probably living a life by design at about 80% right now.
I think that what I want to point out here is that this, he's being very honest about where he is in his business. And I think that sometimes in real estate, ego can get in the way. And I just wanted to basically highlight how he's honest about how he's failed. He's honest about, you know, where he needs work, what he wants to do. And I think that if you're not honest with yourself and with your business, it's going to be reflected. There are plenty of agents out there that walk around that you may think do a certain number, but their ego is really all that you're seeing. And honestly, it prevents them from having a breakthrough, because part of having a breakthrough is recognizing what you're doing wrong, especially when you're new. So I've struggled with my ego until probably the last few years. And I think that parenthood really punches you in the face. But
Can you elaborate on the ego aspect? Because I find it, you know, is that ego thing popular with newer agents? Because I gotta tell you, my ego's been hit, has been kind of scattered, because, you know, like I said, I haven't had a transaction since July, and my ego is kind of frail.
Well, that's where you want to try to, there is a balance. You need to have confidence in real estate, and but you can't let your ego, when I speak of ego, I mean, if you're failing at something and you're not doing something right. So I can share a little bit about me. For me, in 2020, I had a horrible year. I had a horrible, horrible year in real estate, because obviously the pandemic. And for me, my ego wanted me to make the excuses of, oh, well, I have a baby. Oh, it's a pandemic. Oh, it's whatever. And those are all valid excuses. But if I'm being honest with myself and seeing beyond my ego, there were tons of agents that killed it in 2020, that did a ton of business in 2020. The real estate market didn't really, it paused and then it came back with a vengeance. And if I'm being honest with myself and if I disregard my ego, it's because I didn't do the work. That's why.
Right.
And you know, I have reasons for that, but it's also, if I don't take a second to reflect and I focus on, like, your ego is irrelevant. And that's what I want you guys, don't hold so much weight into it. Your ego is going to get bruised. It's going to.
And I think, you know, as newer agents, well, me, I don't know if Amy is a newer agent.
Yeah, Amy is newer too.
And, you know, I think it's vital to align yourself with certain people that, you know, in time, you know, real estate's a business that's, you know, ever changing. It's always evolving. There's always new things. Of course, that's true if you were multi-licensed, and you have to learn different states, the way they do things, and it can sometimes be overwhelming. And
yeah, but the more you practice it, and like, I think that Mike has referenced to getting into real estate is like getting a master's degree in 90 days. And that's if you jump in. But sometimes agents, myself included, when I got my real estate license, and probably didn't close a deal for like 6 months, 7 months. And that was because I didn't know what to do. I was just floundering around. Like, I don't know what to do. And then the things that people would tell me to do made me uncomfortable. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to be doing that.
Right.
And I had very slow growth in the beginning. And then once I started to, I'm a highly competitive person. And once I started to see people, you know, exceed where I wanted to be, then it made me listen to, you know, the things I should have been doing from the jump.
Right. And, you know, again, in the beginning, I aligned myself with some people that probably didn't have my best interest in their mind.
I think you just have to look at it as more of like, it is what it is. Everyone, we're going to all go through certain things to learn lessons. And even in real estate, failures are lessons. I really just want to make sure that you guys don't, I can see in usually like, you know, mid-level agents, they just get a highly inflated ego, and that can be a detriment, because if you have an ego like that, it sometimes can be very difficult to own up to when you're not doing your part.
Right.
And when you're not, you know, if
he's
you're not honest
talking-
with yourself, you can't grow.
Right. And he's talking about time. His
Yeah.
time is valuable. And I think everyone's time is valuable. But I think in real estate, it's such a flux as to, when he says time management, at Friday at 5 o'clock, does he knock off till Monday morning? Probably not.
I think that he's scared, like when you get to a certain level within, I think in the beginning of your real estate career, you have to grind. Like you have to
You
just
gotta hustle it.
go 8,000 miles an hour, but you want to set boundaries early on. That's why I did a class called Boundaries and Burnout, because what agents like him and agents like me, like I really don't work a lot on the weekends anymore. I touch base with, like, if I have to like show houses and stuff, but for the most part, I do my best not to do as much work, because if you're being realistic with yourself, if you're being honest with yourself, aside from buyers, and this is again why you want to align yourself with your business, with the majority of your business being listings, because if you're working with buyers, yes, you're going to be working on the weekends. You're going to be showing a ton of houses. You're going to be, having to write up offers, submit them, whatever the case may be. If you're on the listing side of things, you can set your schedule better, because anything that arises, realistically, very rarely is there anything that can be done about it if the lender or the attorney isn't in.
Right. And you say the key word there, you said it a couple minutes ago, is you're competitive, as I am too. I think in this business you've got to be, and to be competitive is one thing. I think my competitive spirit is going to show through once I gain more confidence. And with confidence, I think is gained by consistency and the
I think that where you were saying that your ego was bruised earlier, you just want to basically take a look at, like, okay, well, why am I not where I want to be, and then fix those things, and you're doing.
And no, we're definitely fixing them. Systems are going to be in place. It's not an overnight process. I know we're setting ourselves up for 2022, and but I'm also highly impatient.
Yeah, that's okay.
And it's those, my impatience is, often a detriment to me.
I think that also you need to be honest about getting ready to get ready. You need to just jump in. You need to just jump in. And because while I'm building these systems and implementing and changing and getting ready for 2022, I'm also still out here being in touch with my contacts, putting deal agreement, stuff like that. So I'm trying, and it's very difficult to do both simultaneously. And that's why it's important as a new agent that you take the time while you have it to set up your systems, because if you set up the systems, the business will come. And if you spend all of your time just getting ready to get ready and like never implement these systems that you've built, the business isn't going to come, because no one knows about your systems. You're not sharing them. So take the time while you have it to build the systems. Because for me right now, with everything I have going on, it's very hard for me to stay on top of my systems, because I'm very preoccupied with my business, which is why I've hired Leverage and Charles and bringing you on as buyer's agent. And eventually you'll get to that level as well. But while you have the time, perfect your systems and work and do them, after, like today, start doing the implemented, I cold call for this many hours a day. And by the end of the week, I hold myself accountable to this many appointments. And then you can be more demanding, if we're going to come back to what he was just speaking on, of your time being valuable, because you'll have leverage and you'll have, experience to know, like, okay, I realistically, like, there's very little I can do after 5, and there's very little I can do on the weekends if there's a quote unquote real estate emergency, because I'm here to kind of like, facilitate, but realistically, like, attorneys need to be involved, lenders work, but most of the time, if there's a real estate crisis, that's going to force you to do a lot of work on a weekend, aside from working on a buyer or hosting an open house. It's gonna need the help of everybody, which is going to have to wait until a weekday.
Good points.
Yeah. And it's like, there is really just a matter of, is this an emergency, or are you just this very highly emotional process for your clients? That's why you have to set the expectation early of, if it's an emergency, I just say I monitor my phone, and I have, somebody that like, I'll be periodically checking in. If it's an emergency, I'll get back to you. If not, we'll pick it up first thing Monday, and set that expectation from the jump. But that means that if there is an issue that you need to get involved in, you don't abandon it, that you do jump in when you have to. But in time, like I have, you just want to, you'll be able to hire leverage, you'll be able to do more. But I'm going to jump back onto this so we don't run out of time here.
I have really dictated and, as to where I want to be, what I want to do, who I want to work with, and the time that I have to enjoy the things that I want to do. And that's all because of focusing on the numbers and having a plan behind it. So without further ado, let's kind of jump into the curriculum, because this is why we are here. We were tasked with reading pages 192 to 195. Again, just 3 pages. And we have the kind of the model broken down here, the cost of sales, operating expenses, right? The fundamental lesson of the MREA budget model is to treat it like a business. We already talked about that. An easy way to keep it simple is the 30-30-40 rule. I think that you guys have all become familiar with that, right? 40% profit, 30% cost of sales, 30% expenses. So question is, how do we get there? Like, I like to look at the budget. First of all, just kind of a show of hands, if you would, real quick, who has a budget for their business or for their personal life? All right, so who has, keep your hand up if you have one specifically for your business. Cool. I see some people that did not have their hands up. And so this is really where, whether you're a single agent, whether you're brand new in the business, I would highly, highly recommend that you set up a budget for your business. And the reason being is that I look at the budget as, your GPS, and I don't mean the GPS as in the 135 that we use in Keller Williams, but a GPS like in your car, because it's going to give you this exact way of how you want to get to your profit by allocating various numbers to your expenses. And Keller Williams makes it super easy. They give you the guidelines of how to do that. So I want to share my screen real quick with you guys. And let's see if this works. So
Get out of here.
All right. That's not the one that I want. I'm going to go into the P&L. So this is my P&L. I've told Brooke that she can go ahead and share this with everybody and put it in the resource page if you want to. Can everybody see this? Yeah. All right. So this I got right from KW site. It is a huge spreadsheet basically, right? And this is going to track your business from every single month. I go in here and I will input all of my numbers, right? So you can see it tracks it from a year-to-date standpoint. It's broken down into residential income, commercial income, other income. You have your cost of sales categories, commissions to the office, royalties, listings, cost of sale, buyer cost of sale, miscellaneous cost of sale, and then all of your expenses, the 9 major categories, which are going to be salaries and benefits, lead generation, occupancy, communication, technology, education and dues, automobile, equipment furnishing, supplies, insurance, professional service, and other expenses. Now, there's people that will tell you that, there should be nothing, there should be no miscellaneous categories or other categories in here. The reason being is that they want you to get really granular with tracking your numbers and making sure that you really understand where every single dollar in your business is going. So I have the question all the time, well, I'm a single agent, does it really matter? Do I have to track things this detailed? Again, if you go back to the MREA, there's a section talking about building habits, right? And so they talk about building the habits of $1 million producer or a $5 million producer or a $50 million producer. The point of that chapter, and when they talk about it, is you might as well start acting like an $80 million producer and building those habits right off the bat, rather than saying, well, I'm just a single agent, so, I'll just keep it like in a notebook or something like that. What you really want to do is to treat this like a business, really get granular, know where every single dollar is going, especially when you're a single agent, because you are everything, right? You are your transaction coordinator, you are your listing manager, you are the lead generator, you're the one that goes on appointments, you do it all. So there's no reason that you as a single agent shouldn't be a business, yourself, rather than saying, well, I don't have a team, right? So the income side of it, which is not really what we're here to talk about, but obviously you can see you can have listing income, buyer sales income, referral income, and leasing income. And then the various categories are, for the cost of the sales. The listing cost of sales and the buyer cost of sales is where you're going to have splits for your agents that are on your team. So if you're on a 50-50 split and there was a $10,000 gross commission income check that came in, it would be your cost of sales on that's going to be $5,000. Does that all make sense? Cool. And then, as you go through, you can see here the various categories, the salaries and everything else. And any questions?
Elena, it's in the chat. Elena just asked if we would have the spreadsheet sent to us. It's in the chat. Brooke dropped it in there. It's also in the Keller Williams resources. And Brooke, help me describe how they would find that. Can they get it through command right now? I know we're all in kind of beta test stuff, so.
No, they can't, but it's in multiple places. So it's in your student resource drive. I'm going to pop the Keller Inc. where you can find all the MREA resources. And then don't forget, any of the emails with the MREA series wrap up have the links to your information. And then just so you know, he's using numbers, Christopher's using numbers, which looks just a little different from Excel. So if you're panicking thinking mine doesn't look like that, it may look different because he's using a Mac.
Right. Absolutely.
Just like I like the category he's using. I don't have all of the category in my budget, so I would like to just take a look what is the category was in use. So that if I go in this link to the student materials, I will find something like that.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And the categories are super important, right? That we are all, this is why they came up with it. When they were writing The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, they went around the country and talked to all of these mega agents. And what they realized was that everybody was tracking their business a different way. So it became very hard to then quantify and qualify, who was doing well, who was not doing well. And, so what they did is they kind of took the best practices of all of those people that they talked to, came up with these categories. And now it's very simple to, if I'm talking to a team, if I'm coaching a team out in California or Alaska or Texas, I'll have a reference and know exactly where they're falling. How much are they paying in salaries on their team? What does their lead gen cost look like? And then you can coach to that and you can really start to dig deep into it. And this is what, I sit down and talk to my agents on my team about is, where are they spending their money? Because even though they're on my team, they are spending some of their own money on lead gen. And what I'm trying to teach them is that if they eventually want to go out on their own, create their own teams, they need to know these numbers and they need to know them inside and out. So we talk heavily about the numbers and where the numbers are being spent.
So Christopher, I'm just going to answer Courtney's question and then hopefully you could chime in too. She said, How could this benefit me as a new agent? Well, here's the great thing, Courtney. Instead of getting ramped up and building a great business and then having to implement this, if you start this from the ground up, you are well ahead of the game and you're going to be able to track your numbers on where your listings are really coming from, your sales, and all of your expenses. So that way, as you build.
I just want to comment here that please don't wait to do something like this because I waited and now it's very difficult to kind of pull it all together. Creating a budget, just running your business like a business and making sure that you're tracking every dollar you spend, making sure that like what you're doing makes sense as far as the spend or cost of sale, looking at your numbers and paying attention to what you're doing, because instead of just like taking a guess at what's working, you can see very clearly what's working. What money did I make off of when I did this? okay, great, let's continue that. Let's stop that. And just running your business like a business. If you do want to go out on your own and build out a team in time, or gain a bigger role in the team that you're on, you need to know how the real estate business functions. And each of us are individual business owners. So you need to run your business accordingly. And this is a great start, and it's a free resource. And I'm going to try and kind of pull it so that it's on the PC dashboard. But that would be something that is extremely beneficial to start early.
My fiscal year starts January 1.
There you go.
That red light, green light with your expenses, you know where you can invest in something or maybe not invest in something else or switch things up. So this tool is great for if you're brand spanking new, or if you're an established agent and haven't done it yet. Right, Krister, would you add anything to that?
No, without a doubt. I mean, I would just say that, you can really, as soon as you get into the business, you can have some conversations with your team leader, other people in the office, and get some approximate costs of what you should be allocating for each category, right? So instead of doing a budget where you're just putting down what you spend, you can set a budget for at the beginning of the year and say, all right, this is what I'm going to allocate for all these different places. It might be, as a new agent, $100 a month for advertising. It could be $50 a month for advertising, and go through these different categories and figure out what it is that you're going to be spending throughout the year. So that does two things. Number one, it creates that habit of being very kind of strict and trying to stay on task and sticking to the budget. It also gives you an idea of what you need to make, right? Because we have not only so here's something else, speaking exactly to that point, where, because all of us obviously also have personal expenses, right? I mean, unless we're living at home with mom and dad and getting everything paid for us. Unfortunately, I'm not anymore. We have things like mortgages. Unfortunately, well, I sold my house in New Jersey, so I got rid of one of those. But we have all these different expenses from the personal side as well. So I used to have one spreadsheet that had all my personal expenses and then all my business expenses, and then kind of what's left over at the bottom. And that was really eye-opening to have, because then you're really seeing what you're making at the end of the day. Because some people are like, wow, I made, $15,000 last month, and that's great. But if you have $14,500 in expenses, then, well, $500 for that month might not be so great, right? So that's one thing you can do. Here is another spreadsheet. And again, I gave these all to Brooke to share with people. Use them, don't use them. Just wanted to throw them out there for you. So you can see I was tracking expenses for the team all the way back to 2016. It was really when we started to get very purposeful about our numbers. And so we just went along 2017, 2018. In 2019, you'll see there's two tabs here, tax and MREA. So I realized that there was a lot of expenses that I was able to utilize for tax purposes, and then also other expenses that were strictly for the business. So I kept two sets of books. One was for the business and one was for my personal tax reasons. Now, I'm not an accountant, so don't take anything I say here as such, but when I go to, I could just print this out and take it to my accountant at the end of the year and have all my expenses and all my write-offs right here to show them. And then these are the MREA categories as per the book. So again, I am mirroring exactly what's in the MREA, and you can see all the different expenses that go along with that.
Can I ask you a quick question about the expenses?
Yes.
Now, I know you're not a tax guy, whatever. But like with mileage, I track my mileage basically by this little app. It's like the Stride app. And I guess it's you just click it on, it says track my miles. But I haven't been doing as well as I wanted to do about saying, oh, this is for XYZ open house that I go to. I'm a new agent. So, this is for driving to the office to get my key card, whatever. Is that something I should be trying to backtrack a little bit now before I get too far ahead of myself? And make
I
sure
mean,
I know.
I would, again, I'm a firm believer in tracking everything. So
Yeah.
I'm a little bit kind of anal retentive about this, but I do track everything. I don't do mileage anymore just because it got to be too crazy. And so I went to more of a cost-based approach where you can do write-offs for maintenance and car payments and stuff like that. But again, I would talk to an accountant and really get, some clarity on that, especially, because each state is different as well, to see exactly where, what you should be tracking, what's the most effective, what's the most cost effective. So you might track it two ways. I've done this in the past too, tracked it two ways, and then let my accountant figure out which one was more advantageous for me. Okay, Jen, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'm spot on. And what I just put in the chat was RE Profit. If you guys haven't heard of RE Profit yet, click on that link, check it out. It's actually the co-founder of that is Matt Erdman, who is the regional operating principal of our region, and Matt Miali. They formed this RE Profit to do all of this for you. If you're scared of this or this is too much for you, this RE Profit will help you. And so Corinna, would you mind unmuting yourself and tell us a little bit, give us a little plug on how it's working for you?
Sure. I did RE Profit and it was, for me, a game changer. Because it broke items down for me and put them in categories. And then it also, like when I go into my RE Profit, the first thing I look at is my profit and loss, because that's the first thing that comes up. And the second thing I do is look at what I have uncategorized and what I have kind of like as a miscellaneous, and I go through and I track it. It's really good because in the beginning of the year, I was in the negative, but it tracks your numbers. So you know when you hit the positive. So now you're making money. So it's kind of a good thing. And it breaks everything down for you in a way that you can better, do your taxes. You can really see what it is that your business is generating, because it does, it tells you, what you're keeping. And then you can also do cost of business, whatever's the cost of business there for you. The only thing that kind of stinks is if you're an individual agent, it tracks you to the minimum, which is 300,000, whatever it is. But that's really a small issue, but I love it. And you really, you should look into it. It's not that expensive, but it's truly, truly a game changer for you.
Yeah, you know what? I appreciate you saying all that. And it really is. So I don't use RE Profit. And the only reason I don't is because I pay somebody else that does all this for me. Right. And I would use RE Profit if I didn't, by the way, but RE Profit gives you all the systems and tools to be able to put everything in one spot, give you that easy button to be able to track it and understand what your numbers look like. And here's the thing, Matt Miali, I don't know if any of you know who Matt Miali is, but he runs probably one of the top teams in Hartford and in the region. He's in Gary's top 200. Yet he tells a pretty significant story of how he got where he is. And it was a lot by what Krister talked about, which was failing forward. And he said that he was a top agent on the ALC doing all this stuff. And his wife was like, well, when are you bringing home the money? Because you're a top agent, but you have zero money to spend or to use for your family. So what's going on here? When he really looked at his numbers is when he realized he needed to make a change, and RE Profit was formed from that. I paraphrased it. He has a much better story than I just told you, but I'm telling you, if you're not tracking right now, and I think it was like a third of us, if not less, that had our hands up when we said we had a profit and loss and a budget. So if you don't have one of those, look into this or go into these models and start. I put it in the chat. The goal for today, start a personal budget and start a business budget. That's your goal for today. Yeah. Anything else you want to add on to that, Krister?
Yeah, I mean, and I would say don't get hung up with which is the best system or which is the best system for me. You know, you will drive yourself crazy trying to figure that all out. The key is, as with any of this stuff, and it applies to lead gen, it applies to pretty much everything in life, is just do it. And I don't care if like initially that it's going to be on a yellow line pad of paper, a cocktail napkin, a spreadsheet on Excel, you know, whatever it is, just start doing it. Start tracking your numbers and get really, you know, just form that habit of doing it every single week, every single month. Because if you don't, you just start to go down a rabbit hole where you think that you're doing great. And what's that famous quote by Gary too? He said, you start losing so slowly that you think that you're winning or something like that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was an agent, another, and you know, to kind of like Matt's story, Haro Satian, I think his name is.
I know Haro, yeah.
Yeah, Haro, you know, and I remember him at family reunion where he said that, you know, he thought he was on top of the world. He was doing all this, you know, he had hundreds and hundreds of transactions a year. And then all of a sudden he was realizing that he was writing a check every month to keep the business afloat, you know, and what kind of a life is that? You know, and I fell into that category where I was just trying to build this team. And, you know, I had a team of 15 or 18 at one point, you know, and I thought I was just crushing it because I had all these people that wanted to work with me. But it was a logistical nightmare. And it really took my coach to bring me down to earth and say, all right, what's the minimum number of people that you can have on your team and net $1 million? And, you know, when you look at the models, it's really, you know, you can do it with 4 or 5 people. You really can. And I know that, you know, I think Hector, I was on that class, I jumped on and looked at it. You know, when you look at the economic model and you see what it takes to make $1 million, well, this is the blueprint of how to get there, right? You need to know these numbers so that if you have a GCI of 150,000, you know that your cost of sales should only be around 13%. That your gross profit will be 87%, your expenses around 38%, and your net income, and net income here is profit of close to 50%, right? 49%. As the teams get bigger, as your income grows, these percentages shift. And that's intentional, just because of the nature of running a team and where you're allocating your money. You will have differences in here, but you always have these best practices where if you have $1 million in GCI or $2.5 million in GCI, they really kind of start to follow the model here, especially at $2.5 million, where you've got 30% cost of sales, 30% expenses, and 40% net income. And then this is such a valuable tool right here, right? So however you guys track your numbers, what's really good, you know, tracking your numbers is great, but analyzing your numbers is where the gold is, right? This is really where you need to take time every month, every week to analyze where you're at with your expenses. Where are you spending your money? Because this is where you're gonna be able to shift on the fly, and, you know, make adjustments as you're going along, right? So you should absolutely not be going 12 months before you sit down and say, all right, well, where did my money go this year? All right, well, I spent this much on that, this much on that. Way too late. You know, everybody's heard the analogy of a pilot. A pilot doesn't get a plane up into the air, pointed at California, and then just go to sleep for 6 hours and hope that he lands in LA. You know, they're sitting there constantly course correcting every, you know, 5 minutes, every 3 minutes, every 2 minutes, whatever it is, to make sure that they're adjusting to everything that's happening out there. All of us went through a little something called the pandemic recently. And this was, you know, a time where all of this really hit me, especially, and I hope everybody else, kind of like smack in the face, where all of a sudden, you know, last March, I mean, I didn't know if we were going to sell another house. And I didn't know what was going to happen to my team. I have people that are relying on me. I have people whose salaries I'm paying. And it was frightening. And the absolute first thing that I did was to go into my personal budget, because family comes first. And I went through and analyzed everything in my personal budget to make sure I could cut money wherever I could. to my absolute shock, and I thought that I had been on top of things, I was able to find $25,000 a year that I could save right off the bat. And I wasn't even looking that hard. And then I switched over and went to the business and did the same thing there to really see what we could do. So again, as you're going through here, these are guidelines, right? It's not the end of the world if you're making 150,000 in GCI and your salaries and benefits are at 8% or 7.5%. So don't get caught too much and freaking out if your education and coaching is at a 4.5 or a 5.3 when it's supposed to be 5%. These are guidelines. What's more important is knowing why it is what it is, right? You might have determined that this is the year I'm really going to work on education and get myself to the next level in terms of whatever it is I want to learn. So your education and coaching costs might go up that year. And that's fine, as long as you know that it has and that you work it into the rest of the budget, right? So again, these are guidelines, not to be, it's not the all or nothing. It is really just kind of to show you the way and to help you analyze things. So let's look real quick into my team's P&L. So this was through May of this year. You can see that we've done 471,000 approximately in total GCI. Total cost of sales at 232,000, which is 49%. So our cost of sales are high, and that is because of all my failures in the past in terms of setting up a team and setting them up to fail from the beginning, where, I was overly generous because I'm a very empathetic person. And I thought that, I just want to make people like me. So I'm going to pay my agents 75% and just keep 25%. And, I really set myself up to fail. So I've spent now several years, having very tough conversations, getting that number down. Last year, we ended up at about 40% cost of sales. So that's the goal for this year as well. And then you can see that we have tracked all of our expenses, from salaries at 36,000, payroll, benefits, lead generation, 18,600 so far in lead gen, education, auto, all the different categories. Our expenses are running about 16%. So we run a very lean operation in terms of money spent. And come down to 161,445 as 35% profit margin. So 35 is good. 35 is kind of our goal for right now. Would I love to get up to 40? Absolutely. It's going to take some more kind of finagling with the team and different conversations, but that's kind of the gist of it from that standpoint. All right, let's see from the curriculum if we are missing anything here. Right, it says here, if your number deviates from the 30-30-40 rule, find out why. Are your fixed expenses too high or too low? Is your split with your buyer's agent too generous? What can you do then to make those things up? So, let me ask people then. I'm going to stop sharing here. Interactive portion here is, what if, so I'm running 16% in expenses. Is that good or bad?
Probably too much, a little bit.
It's actually too low.
Too low?
Yeah.
So what is the norm for the expenses?
Yeah, so the expenses should run you about 30%. So if you're running 16% expenses, there you go. What, somebody tell me, kind of like, what can that be an indication of? Or where's the opportunity there? There's one specific answer I'm looking for.
Maybe marketing. I mean, if you want to increase revenue, you'd probably want to increase your expenses in the marketing.
Absolutely. Lead gen marketing. Absolutely. That's exactly where my mind went first, and where my coach's mind goes is, are you spending enough on lead gen? What's the situation there? Now, we take advantage of a lot of command features in terms of driving leads for the team. So we've been able to keep those low. But where was that? I'm going to go back up to that chart of accounts.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So, but if your expenses are only 16% and you said normal is 30, I would think that you would be thrilled with 16%. And why would you want to increase that?
Right. So that's a great question. And, you know, it's a natural thing. So what you want to look at first is the whole picture, right? Well, if expenses are that low, what is higher, right? So in my case, the cost of sales is at 49%, where it should be at 30%. So there's the offset. So again, I know that I run high cost of sales, therefore I need to run a little bit leaner in terms of my expenses in order to run the profit that I want to run. So, you know, in a perfect world, I would up my expenses. So I'm spending more on the things like leverage. You know, I could have, there might be room there for a whole nother person on the team. And that person might be an ISA or an OSA. Have you guys talked about that? You know, an inside sales agent, outside sales agent, they pretty much call them all ISAs now. But it's really just somebody that's managing your leads for you. You can also have somebody that's doing outbound calls. So that would generate more leads for the team, lead to more income. So yeah, I mean, so you have to look at the overall picture. Jen, you have anything to add to that?
No,
No, but
you're
for-
absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, but for us, like cost of sales, I don't have a team. I just work with the company. So for me, the cost of sales is quite set up. This is what I'm paying to the company.
Correct.
It's very little deviation. So for me, whatever my margin is, what is my expenses on advertising and everything.
Right.
Yeah. So for me, it's cost of sales is set up. So as long as I'm making this one and this is what I calculate, this is my cost of sales, and that is where my other expenses. What is where I can definitely work out numbers on the plus and the minus, it's other expenses, not the cost of sales, because it's set up by the company.
Excuse me.
Correct.
What I would add to that would be if you're looking to add on leverage to your team, your cost of sales is going to start changing.
Yeah, but this is what I'm looking. This is why I'm looking.
Right.
I need to get somebody to help. And I try to understand how to do it in the best possible way.
Right. And that's also why a single agent, if you're looking at, you know, somebody making.
I'm gonna cut it here just because I want to be able to just kind of see where you guys are at.
That's been pretty informative. If I was just running some numbers, you know, I think the important thing there is the 3 words: cost of sale.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's going to cost, you sell 10 houses at an average of $300,000, you know, it's 3 million GCI, you do the math, whatever it is. Then once you get that number, then
Oh, you're breaking up a little. It disconnected.
You good?
I can see Amy. I think you were just kind of cutting in and out, but I know what you're saying. I think that the cost of sale is something that you want to establish early, because if you don't, it's just easier to grow your business. Like he was saying, like he discovered in tracking his numbers that his cost of sale is higher, but his expenses are lower.
You
so
know,
now
when as a single agent, your cost of sale up to a certain dollar amount is 26% to Keller Williams. Okay.
Yeah, but that ends.
Say that again?
That ends obviously after you cap. So, right. And so your cost of sales as a single agent is going to be lower than if you're like, eventually they'll be higher. Like you wanting to take on Vulcan 7 for New Hampshire, that's going to be
right
an expense for you that you wouldn't normally have. Any advertising expenses, these are just things that you want to play around with. And I think they were going to run MREA again, but I think they had to cancel because they had a lack of teachers. But
I'm gonna read the book again.
I feel like you can't read that book enough.
Yeah, it's always in my bag.
Yeah, even audiobook it. It's fast.
I might do that. Yeah, my ride back to Maine this afternoon.
Yeah, you could finish it. It's not that long. Amy, you got any takeaways? Any questions? You're like, nah.
Hey, Sarah, I'm gonna drop.
Not really.
I know I'm gonna heading into the office to teach buyer 101 or buyer workshop. I'm trying to rename it buyer workshop and keep calling it buyer 101.
We'll
but-
talk later.
All right, I'll talk to you, George.
Bye, Amy.
I'll see you shortly. Do you have any feedback from this? It's kind of more of like a larger scale planning thing.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers and stuff can get a little overwhelming, but I mean, I keep a spreadsheet, because it's my organizing
You're very
side.
organized.
So I have a spreadsheet that I have just been keeping, like, like the monthly dues and stuff that come out. I've just been keeping track of that. When I did an open house, I had bought snacks and water and stuff, and I put that in and stuff like that.
So me and you maybe we'll start working on what you're comfortable spending for advertising and things like that. That way you can start seeing if that works. And if it doesn't work, it stops. That's why you don't want to look at them as like fixed. They can change. You run your own business, do whatever.
Okay.
I'll see you soon though.
All right.
Heading
Sounds
in.
good.
All
All
right.
right. Bye.